clicky here. All right, so this is Minimal Cooperation and Group Roles by Katherine Ritchie in Minimal Cooperation and Shared Agency book. So this looks like a book chapter edited by Annika Fiebig? No idea. Anywho, as always, and this was suggested by Viper's Gratitude in chat, as always, feel free to ask questions along the way. This is my first time reading it. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know Kate Ritchie, though, so I expect it'll be good. And yeah, at the end, if you stick around to the end, let me know, because now we have group review. Everyone gets to review at the end, and it'll be recorded for a, time immemorial. So let me drop the music a little bit more, and here we go. So, within philosophy, cooperation has primarily been analyzed in the context of theories of collective intentionality. On these views, cooperation is taken to involve complex, often symmetric mental attitudes. These theories center their discussions on small groups, usually involving pairs of agents who interact with mutual knowledge of some of the other's intentions, beliefs, ends, and commitments. An alternative account of cooperation relies on game theory. On these accounts, the focus is on cooperation in large, unorganized groups, like participants in political demonstrations or flash mobs. Patternot, a prominent proponent of using a cooperative game theory to analyze minimal cooperation, takes collective intentionality accounts to center on egregious cooperation and argues that an analysis could be weakened without making cooperation disappear. Here I focus on a third sort of group, organized groups, and develop a novel account of minimal cooperation that relies on neither collective intentionality nor on cooperative game theory. Okay, so interesting. So, I mean, I've heard of collective intentionality. So the idea is basically that me and you have the same intention, and so then we work together because we have the same thing in mind. The cooperative game theory makes sense. It's that, there's sort of like a whole lot of independent agents, but you're watching what they're doing, and then you're acting in concert, but you don't actually know what they're up to. You don't actually have to have any sort of idea what they are thinking about at that time. You just have to be sort of organized in relation. So it's sort of like flock of birds, assuming the birds don't actually know what the other ones are thinking. Or you could have like drones. Well, actually, drones wouldn't be good, because that would be the collective intentionality. There'd be one thought among all of them, which would be the operator controlling it. But you could imagine that like independent like automata are, sort of watching each other, and you can get, a game of lifestyle complex interactions. So I don't know what Katherine has come up with for us then. Continuing, this is the LGBT coalition? Is it? I don't know. I mean, maybe. Like, what do you mean by that exactly? Like, people who are semi-cooperative or they don't have collective intentionality? And then, hey, what's up, Maddie? Hope you're well. Organized groups like corporate teams, committees, and legislative bodies need not be composed of pairs or small groups of agents with mutual knowledge of collective beliefs, intention, goals, and so on. They are not mere collections of agents as in cooperative game theory. Instead, they involve individuals and organizational structures with roles for members to play. I argue that members of organized groups can be minimally cooperative in virtue of playing roles in an organizational structure and having a common goal. Maddie says they're working together as a political bloc, but are often independent and sometimes against each other. Okay, yeah, so that seems like I didn't get to this sentence yet. That seems exactly right. Because like you're playing roles and you may be antagonistic at different points. Maddie says, but that overall external political problem and force keeps them together and working on a goal. Yeah, exactly. So this seems like you're hitting the nail on the head. Katherine is getting this sort of potentially frenemy sort of thing. Not frenemy, coopetition. That's the term I've heard in the past, where you may be competitive in certain respects, but in other respects you're cooperating. And so you are you put your shit on pause, and then you're organized to get like some work done, and then as soon as the work is done, then you get the fight can resume. So yeah, you might be cooperating and in competition all at the same time. Okay, the view departs from the analyses of cooperation that begin with collective intentionality and those that begin with game theory. The minimal form of cooperation is not grounded in complex mental states, representations, or in beneficial payoffs. We will see that roles that individuals play in organizational structures are central to account for the form of minimal cooperation developed here. Yeah, so this is one of those things, like, people will accept a role in an organization in order to further the goals of that organization, and so they only accept that and they play their role, but they don't actually have to think about what anyone else is doing. It's just, get that shit done, and then you can leave or let someone else take over that role. Okay. That's interesting, though. Like, what is that role? What's the ontology there? And I wonder what Kate will say about that. Considering cooperation between members in organized groups will also prove illuminating in assessing the extent to which theories of social interactions and perhaps social ontology more generally should be construed in internalist or externalist terms. Call views of social phenomena and entities centered on mental representations, mental states, or mental contents internalist views of the social. Call views that rely on features that are external to mental states or mental contents, for instance, documents, laws, or material resources, externalist views of the social. When analyzing cooperative interaction between two agents working in close proximity, it is plausible that both agents have representations of the other agent and of some of her beliefs, desires, and intentions. That is, an account that is largely internalist is plausible. However, once we move to a scale at which there are multiple agents interacting in organizations that involve defined roles and action types, the situation is different. Agents need not personally know all the people with whom they cooperate or have complex representations of others' mental states, or so I will argue. It is useful to have well-defined roles for senators and for senators. Okay, yeah, so I guess like this example, and for members of a corporate team, as they require one to do less mental work to understand what others believe, intend, and so on. It is costly to represent others' mental states. It is far easier to represent roles which are simplified in ways that agents in their full psychologically complicated glory are not. Playing a role is central to the more externalist account of minimal cooperation among members of organized groups developed here. Okay. So what we have here is a overarching structure. And so what you don't have is like internalist representations of other people, but you have this internal representation of the overarching structure of which you're playing a role in. And so in some sense, this is a simplified understanding of the universe because you've got like a simple metaphysics here where you have a role that you're playing. There's like an ontology there of how that organization is structured and what you're doing for it. So you've got this in-between thing. You're not thinking about the people and you're not thinking independently in terms of game theory. You were thinking about some sort of abstract structure for which you can participate in. Frank says, I like that. It is way less cognitively draining to model your coworkers by a few roles than having individual models for each of them. Yeah. So this is why it's interesting. And the concept of playing a role in this abstract structure, what we're calling an organization here, is, I don't know the ontology of this, but like I think this is going to like social ontology. Like what is that sort of thing and how do we actually participate in that? Viper says, he's a furry. Not what led him to become a furry. Yeah, that's right. Like you are participating in a bigger group and you don't have to think about so much about the person. You just have to understand their role within some sort of social, within a specialized social structure. In this case, being a furry or being, like say a board member or a senator, to use Ritchie's example. Frank says, it's risky to go from 2 states person or not to 3 states person or role or not without acknowledging that it can be a spectrum. Fair. Yes. But as you said before, the trick I think here is that we can much more easily treat people as roles. this is where stereotypes come in. Like you just see people in a certain way. Oh, this person's of a certain kind, a certain type of person. And that's what uniforms. This is why people wear uniforms, because they want to be seen as a role in a certain sort of thing. Like, you wear a business suit because you want to look like a business person. You have a big beard because you want to look like a philosopher and be treated as one. It takes the cognitive load off the people you're dealing with because you look a certain way and they feel like they can interact with you a certain way. Frank says we read stories like that too, character archetypes. Absolutely, exactly. Frank says way easier to read a story where you can preload most of the characters. Hey, Lumpy, how you doing? What's up? I hope you're well. Wee Potato Hello, how's the chemistry going? And thank you for all your smoke you're sending down to us. We completely love it here in New York. Anyone who doesn't know Lumpy Dragon Potato is a lovely streamer who streams Minecraft quite often on the weekends and is a professional chemist during the week and makes cool things out of chemicals. But likes to talk, one of the, regulars here, and likes to talk around many things. Oh yeah, it's awful. My town has been spared. Lucky. Viper shared a link earlier. New York had the worst air quality in the world at around 2 in the afternoon today. I was at work. I went outside. It was literally like, a Diablo 4 stream. Like, things were going yellow to red. Like, the devil is, like, Lilith is coming up from the ground or whatever. It's like, it's massive. Frank says, wow, effort to look like your role takes cognitive load off your coworkers is a huge thought for me. This is what uniforms are for. And I read a really, really nice blog post a long time ago. Why do you think certain sports teams have the reputation they have, even long after like scummy players are gone? Because people, once you put that uniform on, they put the style of gameplay associated with that team onto you. And then, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people expect you to play dirty and you are allowed to play dirty because the team has a reputation for it and they kind of let it slide, then all of a sudden it makes sense for you to play dirty. And this is how dirty teams get and keep reputations for being dirty, because you put the uniform on and everyone treats you this way. And it's kind of fascinating. Maddie says, Globus pointed out that it looked like Blade Runner. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Viper says language itself is based on stereotypes. When we say scissors, we think of the ones most familiar to us, not the broad, beautiful gender expression of all scissors. Yeah. Vipers, yes. Many things with scissors. A lot of different uses for that word. Frank says because they wear black and red. Yeah. Lumpy says, scientist. I am not an official chemist in Quebec. I have a PhD in chemistry, but I don't subscribe to the local prof order in Quebec since it costs $800 a year and a zero benefit is not needed for my job. I'm officially a research scientist. So this is interesting. In Canada, it is they have protected roles so that you can't claim certain things because they are protected, because like if you claim to be a certain kind of engineer, that means you are qualified to make a bridge. If you say you're an engineer, but you are not technically qualified to make the bridge, they could sue your ass for saying you're an engineer of that sort, because that's protected, because that means something there. But like we don't have that here in the United States. There are things that are protected, but like Canada, I know, is a little bit more, has different rules about this, and so it's kind of interesting. And so the terms make a bigger difference up there. So it's really interesting. So it's in Quebec only. Say dirty one more time. Yeah. So. But this is the thing. Like my buddy, I keep mentioning him today, Kairos. He is he does like some engineering of like artificial intelligence systems, and I said he's an engineer. He said, no, I'm not an engineer. I can't claim to be an engineer. He is doing engineering work for his like projects, but he is not an engineer. So it's like in Quebec. All right. But yeah, so this is interesting. And so this sort of thing, when you take the cognitive load off people, like this is a whole thing. So it's interesting. Maddie says, don't get me started on science and experts in the judicial system. Yeah, well, I don't know if you've been around for when Aris was describing like the people that he did brought in for like people doing like neuroscience that were brought in as experts in the legal system, and it was embarrassingly bad. Tiny Spider Dancer says, I believe there was a famous case about a person who was timed streetlights and was sued. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, so that they could race through town and not get a single light. Yeah, that's fun. Lumpy says, the Order of Chemistry of Quebec will threaten legal action of $25,000 if you say that I'm a chemist. True story. Some of my professors got served because a journalist said they were a chemist. Wow. So they will go after you even if someone else claims it of you? That seems rough. That like you didn't correct someone else's misattribution and then they can come after you. Yeah, Maddie, I believe it. That you say you have a forensic background. Watching science in court is embarrassing. Yeah, that's rough, Lumpy. That's really crazy that you have to go and defend your reputation against other people saying incorrect things. That's tough. Frank says, I can only barely imagine protected professional names not turning into prestige engines. again, is that better or worse than what we have here, where we have crackpots claiming like expertise in the United States? I mean, there's two, like, yes, then all of a sudden you get these professional things where you need to be pay money and have like certain qualifications to say you're a chemist, as you are in Quebec. But like, on the other hand, we have crackpots claiming they're doctors here in the U.S. Is that like, which one, like, pick your poison at that point? Okay, so here we go. The article is structured as follows. I begin in section 1 by considering the nature of organized groups. In particular, I consider the ways organized groups are structured to involve roles that are defined in ways that are interdependent. Excuse me. Then in section 2, I consider 3 prominent views of collective intentionality and then how they falter when extended to large organized groups. Viper says he's an expert, approaching middle age, and I'm not so pert anymore. Yes, you're an expert person. Since members of organized groups can be minimally cooperative and their cooperative behavior is not well captured by extending a theory of collective intentionality, we need to look elsewhere to understand this form of minimal cooperation. Next, in section 3, I argue for a view of minimal cooperation that relies on roles group organizational structures impose, and a common goal. Yes, this is the thing. You're going to have to understand the group organization at that point. You don't understand the people. You have to understand the structure of the organization and what it's working for. Then Kate says, I consider internalist and externalist views of the social and whether we should expect a unified account of cooperative activity. In 4. Most theorists hold largely internalist theories of social entities and phenomena according to which mental states and representations ground or constitute the social world and social phenomena. I show how the view of minimal cooperation among individuals in organized social groups supports externalism about at least some social phenomena. And finally, in 5, I draw concluding remarks. Okay, so basically this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to go through all the old theories and say why they're bad, and then Kate's going to tell us why this organizational metaphysics is sort of better, and then defend it. So standard setup, nothing too crazy here. At least as far as argument structure. Yeah. Frank says, is common goal a claim that everyone in the group has enough overlapping goal that there is a universal goal, or an extrapolate sum of all the individual goals? I think it's the former, that you have some sort of like mission statement of the organization that everyone realizes they're all part of they're playing, their role plays a part in to, further the mission statement of the organization. So like if you have like some sort of like public charity, save the children, everyone knows that you're trying to like save the children, but like whatever you're doing, that may have nothing to do with saving children. You're paying bills, but like, you pay the bills, and that way everyone else can like go and save the children. And so I think it's more like that, but like you don't know what everyone else is doing. It's not an extrapolated sum of all the individual goals. It's this overarching goal that you don't really understand how it's happening. You kind of hope that someone does understand how it's happening, though. Lumpy says, I would not mind paying dues if A, they would not they retroactive over the last 20 years. You estimate it would cost you $8,000 or so at this point, and B, would give some perks. Engineers are bound by their order, but they get rebates on mortgages. Flips table, you're okay then. See, that's terrible. That's like actively keeping you out, because like if, like now, maybe you didn't have the money in the past, but now like you want to do it, but like $8,000, who has $8,000 to buy a title? What does it get you? If it gets you nothing, it's like, well, what the hell? Does it always have to an external force or a stressor? What do you mean, Maddie? The retroactive dues seem insane, because that's really, really, really gatekeepy. Really gatekeepy. So that's like, it seems almost as if what Frank was saying, I think earlier, they're intentionally gatekeeping certain things here, for prestige. That's all it is. Like, you had to be in it to stay in it, basically. I'm happy that you're actually doing great, Lumpy. I know certain things were stressful, and they would ask you to pull off certain miracles at work, and I'm glad it's going well. Frank says, a super tiny thing in Australia, accountants don't have to pay insurance on home loans because they're considered informed enough to have that risk. That makes some sense. It's like, You should know better, and if you don't, that's your own fault. So that would be nice if we did that in the US, but like here it's like it's just you're screwed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And good luck getting insurance nowadays anyway. Maddie asks, so would a group or coalition only exist successfully to be kept together by an external force or problem, or could it also be internal? This is going to be an interesting thing. Kate's going to have to answer that later. I think she said she's going to be mostly externalist, saying there's something else. You're going to be participating in the external organization. You will have to have some understanding of that organization, and your understanding is going to be incomplete. And so it's going to be partially an incomplete understanding of that organization, but like that will be internalist, but it will be incomplete. But the organization will be external to you, and so she's gonna have to split the difference on that. I think. I mean, this is my guess, but like that's the answer thing. Lumpy says, "Oh, funny. Oh, lol. They keep doing so, but at this point, they keep come clean and still pulling them off." So I come in and derail. What's tonight's topic? We're talking about group organizations and how we cooperate with each other. Do we cooperate by having some sort of representation of what other people think, or are we just doing some sort of impersonal game theory? But what this author is claiming is that once you have some sort of like external understanding of the organization you're participating in, then you can just play your role within that organization, and that's all you need to know is how your role sort of factors into the organization and what your role is. And this allows for people who may even disagree with each other to participate in a larger cause. No more. Maddie says no more of a political group that's made up of different groups. Yeah, so this is the sort of like how you can play roles to organize a larger group. Yeah, I'm not sure where Vipers is going with that, but he's making a joke, most likely. Okay, organized groups and group roles. Before an analysis of cooperation by members of organized groups can be undertaken, we need a better understanding of the nature of organized groups. In Ritchie, so referencing yourself, very nice, I argued that groups like corporate teams, committees, clubs, the U.S. Senate, and British Parliament are entities with organizational structures. Organized groups are not merely structures. That is, they are not identical to structures. Rather, they are entities that have members that are structured or organized in particular ways. They are structured wholes. Yes, I know, Frank. Really, Vipers? That was the only example you could think of internal forces? Okay. Maybe so. So it wasn't a joke. It was just Vipers. This is just how Viper's brain works. We should have known. The structures of organized groups consist of roles and relations between them. Roles are defined in terms of relations to others, tasks that role players are allowed or required to carry out, and in some cases, specific features a role player must have. Relations between roles might be hierarchical or non-hierarchical. Relations that involve deference and power are hierarchical. For instance, a role might allow a role player to give orders to individuals playing other roles. Relations of seconding a motion or reporting on a major project involve relations between group members that are non-hierarchical. Relations between roles also capture the ways playing a role depends on other roles being played. In discussing organizations, Miller states that there is a degree of interdependence among roles, and that the performance of the constitutive tasks of one role cannot be undertaken or cannot be undertaken except with great difficulty unless the tasks constitutive of some other role are undertaken. Roles are largely defined in terms of relations. They are interdependent. It's like, yeah, you have to have an organization. The organization is comprised of the people, and so all the people have to sort of have roles that are there. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. Viper says, I'm actually in a political group that has exactly that structure, kind of why I suggested the paper. I was wondering if this was related to your recent political activity, Vipers. Frank says, I think this organized role thing works even without a common goal, so the paper's claiming less than it could. You're probably right. I bet what's going to happen is that she's going to say this is a possibility, but it doesn't even need to have it, and so she's arguing for the minimal, but then says usually it's going to have a common goal. Otherwise, why would anyone do it? But like again, the paper is claiming the minimal because then I bet that's the next step. But like it's the obvious next step. But that'd be my guess. I don't know what Kate's up to here yet. Roles are also defined in terms of powers, norms, and responsibilities. All right, and this is one of the interesting things. This is, you get powers. This is a power theory, because once you get a role, then you get abilities. By being in that role, you have abilities. So like if you have you're in a job, you get the ability to do things like you can be on premises. You now have that power to exist on premises without getting thrown out. So it's like, but all of a sudden, like this is interesting. How are powers conferred onto you? It's like, I knight thee, Sir Viper's gratitude, and now you are a knight of the realm and you have certain powers. But how does me hitting you with a metal stick do that? Well, you're part of some grand organization as part of the British Empire, and now you are a knight of the realm. These might involve relations to other role players. For instance, some roles involve the power to give directives to other role holders. You just notice Agnes stream 1 hour philosophy roulette, and then he has to go meditate. I get it. Yeah, I mean, he's an intense guy though. Sometimes I don't blame him. You gotta like focus yourself. I should do some more meditation. Really, I'm happy you stopped by though. Like, Agnes a good people, I think. Okay, norms about how to properly interact might also be part of what defines a role. Roles might also involve powers, norms, or responsibilities pertaining to particular tasks. For instance, some role might involve being responsible for the group's media presence, while another gives power and responsibility to a role player to control fundraising efforts. Yeah. Finally, group organizations might place particular restrictions on who can play a role. For instance, one might be required to be born in a particular country, be at least 35, or meet other external requirements like being appointed or elected by non-group members. Yeah, so like if you want to be the president of the United States, you have to be born here in the United States, or I think you have to be born here or a citizen here. And no, you have to be born here and be at least 35. Those are two of the rules. And so that's like kind of what she's saying, like one of the things. What's the main point of that the article is trying to make? Well, apparently in the literature, the main ways cooperation has been described is with the internalists, sort of like we both have the same ideas going forward, and that's how we cooperate. Or game theory, which is sort of like these independent actors, automata that are sort of acting independently, but like can adjust based on what the other ones are doing, and then you can sort of adjust together. But you don't have to have any internal representation of what the other ones are doing. You're automata that aren't coordinated, but you are cooperating. So either you have a representation of what other people are doing when you cooperate, or you're coordinated through some sort of game theory, but you don't have any representation. This is an in-between theory where you have cooperation via partial understanding of what the other people do via this organizational thing. Globus the Elder. Welcome in. What's up? Whoa, cool. Globus raid. Where do I know you from? I know you from somewhere, too. Like, I know you from somewhere. Where are you from? How you doing? What were you up to today? What's going on? Welcome in. Anyone who doesn't know me, let's give Globus a shout out. Thank you for the follow. Globus the Elder. Where do I know you from? I forget. I'm not even following myself. But okay, there we go. How you doing? Welcome in. Anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Noger, No Gray, whatever you want to call me, don't care. Educational streamers covering AI. I've seen you in so other people have mentioned you. That's where I've seen you from. I'm a dream of Globus. I read philosophy papers on stream because I'm insane. Globus doing good AI work. Excellent. Maybe did I see you in Cairo stream maybe? Yeah. So welcome in. I read philosophy papers on stream. We discuss philosophy here, like a little bit academically, actually. This is actually, like this, what you're seeing right here, this is an actual paper that's published philosophy, and we're going through it and figuring out what the person has to say. Like, does this person have any ideas that are worth talking about? So, yeah. The Globus never sleeps. Frank says, yeah, Globus never sleeps. Okay. Frank Big Time says it also spreads out the burden of cooperation because everyone takes a small step of acting like their role, and then no one has to analyze what role you fit into. Yeah, exactly. This is, again, you can think of this because you were mentioning it, cognitive, less cognitive stress, a lot less cognitive work. You just have to fulfill your role. You're a cog in the machine. You don't have to know how the whole machine works. Someone has to know how the whole machine works, but you don't have to know how the whole machine works. Yeah, so thanks for the raid. Really appreciate it. Stick around, chat some philosophy if you want. If not, and what were you up to today anyway? Just doing AI work? What kind of AI? Reinforcement learning? LLMs? What are you up to? Yeah, see, I have some weird. I see certain people, I don't see other people. A lot of times when I'm on Twitch, I'm there to zone out. So I'm not always doing, like, I'm just watching someone play a video game a lot of times. It's like, it's interesting. We were discussing Prof. Laura earlier in stream, and I gave him a shout out earlier. It was basically because I know him from a Soulsborne streamer. Yeah. AI safety and some current news. Cool. Cool. Very cool. Yeah. Hey, Read and Rap. What's up? Hope you're well. Okay, AI safety. Yeah, it's getting to be a little bit of a shit show nowadays. We've been discussed that on Philosophy Roulette. That was I published my reviews of philosophy papers to YouTube. One of the recent ones was us discussing some how to make philosophy safer. It was not a good paper, unfortunately. It was dumb. It was saying AI, these LLMs are too emotionally manipulative, and we got to tamp that down. And the way they were tamping it down was to say that the AIs can't use emotes. And it's like, that's your solution to the AI problem, is to not let them use emotes? Like, seriously? Globus says philosophy is an important aspect of AI safety that people don't really consider. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm on that. We've been discussing it a lot here, actually. The Cougar verse. So, yeah. But, I mean, that was a bad paper. But, like, we've read other ones that were better. So, like, the thing. Both papers, actually, I think we read recently were about this sort of emotional manipulation. One was the emote one, which is just, like, sort of like, that's not going to solve the problem. And then the other one was a little bit better, but like it was just saying you have to pull the emotional manipulation out of it. It didn't know how to do that, but it was saying that's one of the dangers. And so that was kind of the things. Alexis does TV. Alex does TV. Hi, Alex. Welcome in. Emotes would make manipulation harder, I think. I don't know. I don't know. I know that we like emotes because, they're kind of impactful. That's why we use them here on Twitch so much. It's like you got a PogChamp and like everyone goes crazy and you see the emote streams and it's very exciting. And so that is part of like the emotion. And it's like, an image like is worth 1,000 words. So it's like maybe not. But like this is the thing. If I'm trying to show you an illusion and I put the duck rabbit in chat like that, it's a lot easier to be like, duck rabbit, duck rabbit right there. Boom, duck rabbit. So it's like, in some sense, yes and no. If like the AIs figure out how to use them effectively, it would be very dangerous, but like it would be a little bit harder for them to figure out how to do it. But like, I mean, again, you think the AIs can't get around using emotes. So yeah, that's a fish. Exactly. It's a duck rabbit fish. So this is the thing. Yeah. Okay. But again, we're talking about how do we actually increase, or how do we actually cooperate without knowing what the hell's going on? That's the question here. And we do that via some sort of weird organizational metaphysics where we can just imagine ourselves as part of as a cog in the larger machine. But how does that actually work? That's what we're talking about today. And we're kind of midway through the paper. This is one of the difficulties of philosophy, is you always come in midway unless you're here from the get-go. Okay, so feel free to ask questions along the way, comment or whatever, but I'm just going to keep going. So author says the member role plausibly allows for more than one role player, while other roles might allow for only a single role player. Yeah, so like there might be a bunch of people who are like vice presidents, but then there's going to be only one chief executive, and like that person has to make decisions. Nice. Actually, we're sort of in the beginning. We're still going over the background theory. In this part, she is going to argue that the other people are wrong. And then she's going to get into her stuff later. The people who she's saying are wrong are the people who are internalists, that say you have to have an internal representation of what the other person's thinking in order to cooperate with them. You have to know what they have to know you, and you have to know them, and then you can cooperate. Of course, you can cooperate in that way. She's saying that's not always going to happen, though. And then the other people are, like I was saying, the automatons, who are doing some sort of like game theoretic reactions based on other people, where you don't have to know what they're doing. You're just sort of like reacting in some sort of independent way. But again, she's saying, well, that's not also what happens all the time either. Okay. The Senate, a corporate team, and other organized groups are not just organizational structures. The structure of a group captures its functional organization, but an organized group itself is an entity that is structured or that has a structure. While a precise metaphysical account of organized groups is not needed for my purposes here, being clear that organized groups are not identical to structures is important for several reasons. First, the same organizational structure might be had by more than one group. For instance, there might be many corporate teams or many committees with roles defined in the same way. And you can think of this in terms of science also, as a little aside. There might be a lot of mathematical structures that are reused in science in different areas. But it means something different. Like, say, if you're using, like, F equals ma in physics, but then there's a lot of things like where you've got one term is equal to two other things multiplied together. So the structure, again, is the abstract structure. That's not what organized things are. You need organized things in a particular instance. That's the only way anything makes sense. Otherwise, you just have like x equals, like z equals x times y. A lot of things represent that structure, and so an abstract structure is never enough. And that's actually a very hard problem in the philosophy of science to discuss. What actually is the science? Because the math alone won't do it. The structure alone is never enough. Okay, so if groups were identical to structures, there could not be two groups with the same structure. Groups should not be identified merely in virtue of having the same organizational structure. Members of a group matter for group identity conditions. Yeah, so this is exactly what I was trying to say. If there was only one, if you could identify things by structure, there could only be one thing that would be equal to something else times something else. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, otherwise, F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration, would be the only thing that could be one thing be multiplied by two things. It's like, no, that makes no sense. Okay. So second, organizational structures themselves might be abstract entities. Many philosophers take relations to be abstracta. If organizational structures are complexes of relations, they would also be abstract entities. Exactly. F equals ma, but then fluctuations equals mitochondrial adaptation. Yeah, but that's exactly it. This is why you actually have to know what you're talking about. You can't rely on structures. And people, like, I know saying it here makes it sound like obvious. This is not an obvious point. This is a very hard point. And so I'm like laughing about it, but like people have been trying to reduce science to mathematical structures for a long time. Ivan Neo was talking about this earlier where, what was he saying with the positivists and stuff? Well, nothing about mitochondrial DNA. We were just saying that, like, if you have like these formulas, these structures, they're under-specified. The structure under-specifies what you're talking about. And so this is a sort of thing. Yeah. Yep. Formula joke. Okay. So, yet groups seem to be causally relevant and have spatial and temporal locations. They do not seem to be abstract. Yeah, they're not just abstract structures again. Groups are therefore not just organizational structures. They're entities that have structures or that are structured. This is very Aristotelian for those philosophers in chat. Hylomorphic, you've got a form, you've got a structure, and matter. You need the thing to have the right sort of thing. So this is Aristotelian metaphysics, actually, very common, formed matter. And so you've got a structure, the morphe, and the hule is the stuff. So an organized group comes to be when some people play the roles required by a group organizational structure. Okay, so this is weird, but like this is just hand wavy, but it doesn't matter. Like how you actually form a group, that's different metaphysics, but we're gonna ignore that for now because it does not matter for this paper. But yeah, I'll let it go. All right, when some person A stops playing role R and another person B starts playing role R, the group's membership changes. Well, so if someone gets a new job and you get someone else in the job, the organization didn't really change, the individuals did. While A was a member of the group, she no longer is. More formally, we can define membership as in an organized group as follows. Lumpy, have a great night. Thank you for coming by. And I hope you mend well. Yeah. So rest, get good rest, good sleeps, good rest. Be revitalized. Okay, so define organized social group membership. Some things X are the members of a group with an organizational structure S at time T and role W. If and only if together X plays the role in S. All right, so this is like you have to play the role here. And this is the whole thing where you are playing a role. What does it mean to play a role? Like even in a play, like a theater, what is it to play the role? Are you a method actor? You have a budding bunion. I am sorry to hear that. Viper says you formed a group by finding 6 dinosaur-themed golden coins created by Ninjor. How did that happen? When did I play a role? See, this is the thing. Groups are constituted by role playing. I mean, if it was just a mere thing about finding something on the ground, I wouldn't be part of the group unless I sort of like played the role of being in the group. So, yeah. Old man disease grumbles in the distance. Old man yells at clouds, yes. Frank says some group structures can be fundamentally the same type of structure with some variation, like a pastor and parishioners can be a church with varying numbers of parishioners. Yes, so that's exactly right. There can be different kinds or similarities, so it could be one to many. But of course, you can still be a pastor without any followers, but would you really have a parish at that point? It's like if a tree fell in the forest, would make any sound. If you've got a church without any pastor or parishioners, do you really have like a congregation at that point? Then you're getting into the metaphysics here. But this is why this is so important, and I sort of stopped here, is that you have to have people playing the role. Once you have playing the role, it's like, dress for the job you want. You are playing the role of the thing, and then you're supposedly sort of like creating yourself as part of the organization. Doesn't always work out, but like that's why I was pointing out like there's something kind of funny about how to constitute an organization. Just by playing the role, like that doesn't, like if I play the role of a billionaire, that does not make me a billionaire. But like, yeah. You gotta have 2 parishioners, you think, otherwise you're a Sith. Thank you, Frank, for clarifying there. Power Rangers reference from Vipers. Tried to relate to the kiddos, failed. I never did the Power Rangers thing. Viper says, perish the thought. Yes. Okay, so yeah, there's limits to the metaphysics here. Just by playing a role, like there's more to it than that, really, because you need to have like the structure has to kind of prior exist for you to play the role in the structure. Otherwise, me playing the role of a billionaire does not give me $1 billion and does not confer to me all the powers that a billionaire has in a capitalist society like we have. So it's not everything just playing the role. Although a lot of people, fake it till they make it. And sometimes it does work out. And this is literally fake it till you make it. The definition of membership allows for organized groups to change members and captures how membership relates to a group's organizational structure. Yeah, this is for prior organizational structure. Read and Rap says, you mean binge watching Gary Vee and hustle culture content won't let me overcome income inequality and the exploitative nature of capitalism? Who would have thought, Keck W? I should have a Keck W emote. Yeah. Or in the case of Elon, fake it till you break it. Yeah, and that's always the problem with these people. Like, they think that because they're playing the role of billionaire, they are conferred the properties of being smart and brilliant and everyone likes them. And that's not true either. You may be a billionaire because of things that you did not do or you do not deserve, and then you are just, sort of a charlatan with a lot of money. But you think you get it because everyone's going to fawn on you. I'm not even claiming that of Elon. I'm not. I'm just saying people have a lot of money and then think they're the absolute, the shit. They're the best. And it's like, the money doesn't make the man, Yeah. Frank says, this now feels like a root imposter syndrome where when you know everything you need to know to do your job well, but you don't know how to play the role of your job correctly. That could be a problem. But again, the issue in some sense is the question of cooperation. How do we actually describe cooperation? That's the goal here, Frank. So it's like, if you know how to do all the things you need to do to do your job, that would entail that you could, talk to the people in your organization and interact with them in the correct way. So it's like you may get imposter syndrome, but it wouldn't really matter as long as you understood enough about the job. But again, then there's details on that. Maddie says a billionaire doesn't start with $1 and then build from that. No one does it by themselves. Anyone who says that they did is deluding themselves and everyone else. I mean, Trump, his dad was like extremely wealthy, like probably if you translate it to today's money, he was already a billionaire. And so it's like, and he was already in the real estate business. And so I don't doubt that he got a loan from his dad. I don't doubt that he made some good deals. I'm just saying that you think that his dad's friends who gave him those deals were really trying to like screw the kid of their buddy over? No. It's just I think he got some sweetheart deals from like his dad's friends because they were trying to butter up his old man. But like, did he get a small loan and then start off from there? Yes, but it was because he was already in the system that he was able to do so well. It was he's a rich kid who got kind of coddled, in my opinion. Yeah. And I'm not even saying he's dumb. I don't think he's stupid. I just don't like him. Yeah, so Frank says it's a bit too big of a claim, but now I'm thinking socialization is about learning social roles and how they interact well enough that you can slot yourself into organizations. Well, in capitalist America, yeah, there's some of that in our schooling. There's definitely some of that in our schooling. In terms of sports, I heard the Israelis started to take up our American football because they liked how it got people to, work well together in like army unit sizes, because they wanted the kids to be better prepared to be in the military for, everyone has mandatory army stuff in Israel. And so they thought that actually having people play games where there are more like working together in unit-sized organizations would actually help out getting people even prepared to do their military service. And so like Frank, it is in the thing. Maddie said Trump's dad had a diss track song by Woody Guthrie calling out his scum-sucking landlord bullshit. Yeah, his dad was even scummier than Trump. Yeah, well, I don't remember. I just saw a news thing about this years ago. I don't know if they actually whatever came of it. I mean, I'm not even saying football's a bad game. I'm from the U.S. I love American football. I know it's bad for people, but I do like the sport. Okay, but like these are all the things that are like going on here. I was talking about uniforms before. Like, what is it to put on a uniform? It's to take on the sort of look and feel of that organization, and everyone has like opinions about like sports teams. Are they clean? Are they dirty? All this sort of stuff. And so when you play the role of being a member of that sports team, you are also taking on the role of how people feel about you and how they are going to treat you as a member of that team. So if like they think you're scummy, they're going to treat you as scummy, even if you just got there and you were never scummy before. So that's what happens. All right, 2, collective intentionality and cooperation. We're finally getting to the cooperation stuff. This was all the background theory before this. Trump. The first time Trump made the news was from a lawsuit against him for racist rental application policies. Yep. I don't know if that was the first, but like that was, I know, early stuff. He was starting to get sued because he wasn't renting to, I think, black people. Viper says, total aside, but I have been meaning to ask you about the prevalence of perception of Zionism, big topic, so we can leave that till another time. Yeah, that's politics stuff. I mean, I'm in New York, so there's a lot of Jewish people here. You're gonna get a full range because most of the people here are like, American Jews. We're like, oh yeah, Israel, whatever. Like, who knows? But then you get like the conservative people that are like Zionists, and it's like, yeah. I'm also in the New York bubble, so like Jews are treated better here because there's a lot of them and everyone's just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, there's still a lot of anti-Zionist people. There's like pro-Zionist people, and then there's people who just like hate Jewish people. So it's a mess. Okay. Collective intentionality and cooperation. Analyses of cooperation have been addressed largely in the context of collective intentionality. One might think the explanation as to why discussions of cooperation have focused on collective intentions is obvious. Cooperation involves collectively intending to vie with others. Globus is, and no Globus, it's been nasty here. Like, if you see the pictures of 2 o'clock, let's see if the Times still has it up. No. Whoa. Okay. So here, I was going to look at the the picture, but like Trump is just targeted. They're saying that he's gonna likely face charges. Okay, here's the picture. This in the lower right hand corner. This is what it looked like at 2:00 in the afternoon for me. Is very much what it looked like. This sort of weird pumpkin world. It was like we were descending into Diablo 4 because I've been watching Diablo 4 streams. That is not the case, Vipers. Not at all. So this is what things look like. Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really nasty. So yeah. And like, my voice has been scratchy since the start of the day. So if I start to collapse, this is why. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so again, we're talking about how cooperation is understood, the idea that we have intentions that match up with someone else's intentions. We're both trying to work towards the same goal. Makes sense that, like, well, we're both trying to do the same thing, so we work together and we can, like, you know, divvy things up. And I know that you're going to work on this part, I'm going to work on this other part, and together we're going to get all the parts we need to get the end product. So makes sense that there's a collective intentionality. Okay, definitions of cooperation usually involve a set of individual intentions that have certain origins and enjoy certain relations, all of which is common knowledge that is public or transparent among agents. While sharing a common core, views vary according to whether they involve primitive, irreducible we intentions, the ways they take individual intentions and plans to be involved, and whether plural subjects are relied upon. They also vary in being causal or normative explanations. You guys don't need to know what any of this crap is, like a we intention or plural subjects, like us all like thinking something. Like if me and you have the same thought, is there like a we that has a thought? It doesn't matter. But like, I mean, you can get the point. Like, there's a lot of technical discussion about this. Bratman, Gilbert, and Searle offer three prominent accounts of collective intentionality and cooperation. Bratman argues for a reductive account of what he calls shared cooperative activity. He analyzes we intend to J in terms of individual attitudes as follows. Yeah. Okay, we intend to J if and only if, 1, I intend that we J, and B, you intend that we J. Gotta love analytic philosophy sometimes. And by love, I mean abhor. 2, I intend that we J in accordance with and because of 1A, 1B, and meshing subplans of 1A and 1B. You intend that we J in accordance with and because of 1A, 1B, and meshing subplans of 1A and 1B. And 3, 1 or 2 are common knowledge between us. Yeah, so, yes. So everyone knows the shit and we all agree to do our parts. That's like literally all that got said. Viper says, all I know is that when women go to the bathroom at the same time, it's not necessarily a we intention. Thank you for that, Vipers. Resistance is futile, says Aberlin. Welcome in, Arbelin. Hope you're well. Gilbert, okay. Yeah, so the account reduces collective intentionality to an individual intention with subplans that are consistent and can be jointly satisfied. That means mesh and common knowledge of one another's intentions. Yes, howdy. Gilbert argues for an account based on joint commitments and plural subjects. She takes a plural subject to be formed via a joint commitment to do something as a body. Joint commitments to involve obligations to the others with whom one formed the commitment to carry out the activity which they committed. Analytic, yes, the math of philosophy, yep. They also give one the right to rebuke other parties in the joint commitment if they fail to act in a way that is appropriate to their global obtaining. Okay, so we get together, we form a group, and then the group has certain intentions, and we are parts of the group that act as parts of the group. But that's because we all have the same idea of the group, because that's how we're organizing it at this point. Everyone has the same thoughts, and then we are acting in concert as part of the group. Okay, Gilbert holds that forming a joint commitment requires all of the parties bound by it to be involved in its creation. She states the parties to a joint commitment are those who comprise both its creator and its subject. Going further, she states that it is a condition that all of the parties must be involved in the creation of a joint commitment. Further, prior to forming a joint commitment, all involved must express readiness for joint commitment, which must be common knowledge among them. In her final analysis, Gilbert states that two or more people are acting together, doing something altogether, if and only if 1, they are jointly committed to espousing as a body the appropriate goal, 2, they are fulfilling the behavioral conditions associated with the achievement of that goal, 3, their satisfaction of these conditions is motivated in each case by the existence of the joint commitment. Gilbert's account is non-reductive, as committing to do something as a body does not reduce to individual commitments or beliefs. This is what I'm talking about with philosophy and AI. This sounds a lot like AI alignment. No. Like this stuff right here. Yeah, I agree. Like this is sort of like Ivan Neo brings this up a lot, actually. It's that, like, we've got these neural nets, and sort of the neural nets get weighted in certain ways. And so, like, once you get all these things sort of, like, coming together, like, it's sort of, like, adjusting itself to, once you get, like, one, like, sort of group together, it's adjusting itself to, like, perform the tasks as necessary. I think that a lot of this stuff is easily described in like sort of like the way the AI stuff works. This sort of joint commitment thing is like, well, you've got different parts of the computer and it all works together to, like, create a good output. Finally, Searle argues for a view of collective intentionality that relies on primitive, irreducible we intentions, but which does not require a plural group, subject, or meshing subplans. Frank says Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg have formed a common organizational duo, one hardened convict, the other America's sweetheart. Yeah, I know. I love Snoop. He's such a sweetheart. Yeah. Snoop is a very good joint commitment. Yeah, I know. Like, it's funny. It's like there's always the joke. Which one of those is the hardened criminal? Well, it's, Snoop was on trial for murder, but he was not found guilty. But, like, Martha is the only convict in the group. Would you mind if I reached out to you about having a convo on stream? Not at all. There are other people we've talked on stream about. Our buddy Aristotle, he is a ethicist and ancient philosopher, and we've talked, him, and we've done group chats before on ethics and AI, actually. And there's also Evolve Yourself was here earlier. He's a good guy. There's the other philosophers are. And Ivan Neo maybe too. But like ask a philosopher their group chat on their own. I don't know if they'd want to talk. But you can ask me and we can work something out if you want. I don't know if you really want my opinions on things, but sure. They do not have a kid together. No way. No way. Yeah, I know you meant Martha being convict, Frank. That's the joke. But I like that the mind skitters on the surface of the two people not sure which to assign the role for a second to. Yeah, because, she looks like a nice old lady. You don't think of her as a convict, but, like, nice old lady, it's like, nah, she's asshole. Snoop, on the other hand, he's a musician. I always sell myself short, LMFAO. Perhaps. It's funny, like, I was on Viper's stream a little while back, and Vipers, when the hell are you streaming again? It's like, he asked me, like, would you have anything to say? I'm like, no, I've got nothing to say. I make 5 hours, 6 hours of content a week. I got nothing else to say. Yeah, Vipers does roundtable discussions. If you want to give yourself a shout out, Vipers, do it. Anywho, let me get back to a paper for a second, unless people got more questions. Okay, so this guy Searle, he argues that when engaged in cooperative collective action, participants each have intentions of the form we intend that we fi. According to Searle, this involves a special collective or we mode of intending that is not reducible to mere individual intentions in an I mode. Searle's account also involves common knowledge. He states that cooperation implies the existence of common knowledge or common belief, but common knowledge, together with individual intentions to achieve a common goal, is not by itself sufficient for cooperation. Rather, he holds that cooperation requires a collective intention to cooperate, which is an intention that we cooperate or that we intend to fi. It is worth noting that the core cases on which Bratman, Gilbert, and Searle focus involve small groups of individuals. Gilbert states that in the example of acting together on which I focus, there is no hierarchy. The people involved certainly know of one another and are in the midst of relatively substantial personal interaction. Similarly, after mentioning basketball teams and orchestras, Bratman states that to keep things simple, he will focus only on shared cooperative activities that involve only a pair of participating agents and are not the active activities of complex institutions with structures of authority. He suggests that we can gain some insight into shared intentionality by starting small, and that perhaps our theory of small-scale shared agency can, with due adjustment and further additions, be extended to larger social organizations. Viper says, I'll be streaming tomorrow, hopefully, if my arcade stick arrives, hopefully to take it out for a test ride. Real nice. Not a euphemism. I'm sure it's also a euphemism, Ivan. Yeah, I'll be at work tomorrow if the air is not like gonna choke me to death. So I don't know if I'll be around, but yeah. I almost knocked my water over. Starting with simple cases can be a good methodological strategy. Simple cases are easier to analyze. They have fewer moving parts, if you will. If one is concerned with understanding how cooperative or collective behavior comes to be, simple cases rather than highly complex institutional cases also seem like a more fruitful place to begin inquiry. However, even if starting with simple cases is justified, it would be hasty to conclude that the same analysis of simple cases can always be scaled up to larger organized groups. That's like, yeah. I mean, maybe some things can scale, not everything scales. Groups like teams, committees, and legislative bodies are very different from 2 people going for a walk together or 3 people cooperating while preparing a meal. They involve organizations that have defined, often hierarchical roles. Read and Rap says, I can see the headline, Streamer dies from smoke inhalation after reading Spicy Philosophy. Spicy Philosophy. Yeah, I once read some Spicy Philosophy, and I post these things to the internet, and I got some racist guy defending some racist philosophy, and I'm just like, no, you're racist. Why do you think I put up with this? I showed why the author was wrong or was a little too hasty in their arguments, and then somebody comes in and is like, try to post some stuff, and I'm like, well, this is just some spicy philosophy. It's like, no, this is racist. It's not spicy. You're bullshitting your references, and you are being racist. That's what it is. It's like, I'm going to call you out. Anywho, Viper says, my heart skipped a beat when she said things don't always scale. I'm so sick of explaining that to people. Yeah. And especially in philosophy. People don't realize that in philosophy too. Things in philosophy don't scale. And people think, well, it's an idea. Of course it scales. It's like, no, it's not how it works. Indeed, like Evo Psych, this is just racism. Yeah. A lot of this stuff's like, it might work in a few cases, but if you scale it up, it just goes haywire very quickly. Very, very quickly. It's like, yeah, it might work in like a limited set of circumstances or cases. A lot of times that's fine. It's like, but as soon as you start applying that to like all the people, it's like, don't do that. You don't think Evo Psych is racism? No, but like a lot of the, you can get some racist theories if you start scaling up like, well, these sorts of mental structures evolve for like certain sort of people and not other people. And it's like, well, these are the correct sort of mental structures. It's like, no. How is that racist? Ancient Karen proverb. Okay. I mean, Evo Psych on its own is not racist, but it's one of these things that gets abused by racists. Okay. Organized groups can vary in members across times and worlds and may be extremely large. They seem different from Gilbert's plural subjects, which are formed whenever some individuals form a joint commitment to do something as a body. Moreover, individuals who are currently members of a group might not have been involved in forming the group, its organizational structure, or its goals. Recall that Gilbert requires that all parties bound by a joint commitment must be involved in creating it. Are people saying different races have different evolved psychologies? I've heard all sorts of claims. I've even heard stuff like that. They're like, well, they've got like the right sort of mentality, I've heard. And it's like, this is like justified by evolution. It's like, yeah, I mean, this is obviously racist stuff, but like, this is like the bullshit people say. I've in a distinctly not racist way. Non-racist high five, go. Bah. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Reading Rap is saying similar things. Yes, yes. Lamoa. I kind of like that better. Lamoa. Jason Lamoa. Okay. In passing several times, she states that individuals might join joint commitments, but her theory as espoused in 2006 would need to be modified to allow for this. In considering Gilbert from here, I will be considering her account as stated. On that account, members of many organized groups do not form plural subjects, yet she requires plural subjects in her account of acting together. Members of some groups, like a large legislative body or corporate team, might not know every other member. They also might not know which individuals are playing which roles or whether there are multiple individuals playing some roles. If a member A does not know that B is a member of the group, it is implausible to suppose that A has representation of B's intentions, beliefs, or plans. Knowing that there are particular roles being played is not enough to enable one to have representations of mental states. After all, roles don't have mental states. Further, members of an organized group might not know what many roles involve. They might not even know what roles the group organization includes. Yeah, it's like once you get to a big group, there might be parts of the stuff, like your left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. This happens all the time. So, without knowing who is playing a role in the accounts given by Bratman and Searle, the accounts given by Bratman and Searle appear not to apply. On Bratman's account, individuals are required to have knowledge of others' intentions in order to engage in cooperative shared activity. Having a we intention as required in Searle's account of cooperation might not be possible without knowing who is included in the group or plurality picked out by the we. Even the condition of common knowledge or belief is challenged by the epistemic opacity about individuals' identities that can occur in large organizations. What do we got, Vipers? I just want everyone to know, Vipers picked out this paper, so if he's making fun of the paper, this is entirely his fault. Yes, this is a great meme. Undercover cops, I didn't switch. Yeah, undercover cops posing as drug buyers are arrested by undercover cops posing as drug dealers, and the tax papers are like, what are you doing, you morons? That's good. I'm happy that you like it, Frank. I mean, like I said, I know Kate. She's good. So I'm happy you like her paper, actually. Yeah. So, hope I clicked that correctly. Was like, yeah. And this is the thing. Left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. But clearly they were not cooperating in that meme where some cops were arresting other cops and they were both playing the wrong roles at that time. Okay. So, yeah. For instance, if P being common knowledge among a group G requires that each member of G have representations of others, knowing that P as well as iterations of higher order attitudes, then knowing who the members of G are is required for common knowledge. You have to know the people if you have to have common knowledge in these schemes. If you're in that group, you have to know who is you're working with. Simple. Members of organized groups certainly seem to be able to cooperate. Members of teams, committees, and legislative bodies do complete goals, often in ways that are more efficient and effective than an individual or unorganized group of individuals could. Any account of cooperative activity that is meant to be general must be able to account for such cases. Ivanio says the two groups were acting appropriately but not cooperatively. Yes. Well, they were acting cooperatively amongst themselves, but the two groups were, even though they were both law enforcement, were not cooperating. And that was the problem. So, yeah. The accounts just considered cannot, at least in their current forms, correctly accommodate all cases of cooperation. Moreover, it does not appear that they can be easily modified to handle the cases I focus on here. This is particularly so for Bratman and Searle's accounts. The methodological assumption of starting with small group one-off interactions and scaling up to large group long-term interaction should be abandoned. Yeah, so let's see. Is there any way? No, I mean, it really does seem like a special case where you start off in a small group. It's unusual when you know all the people involved. I mean, maybe back in the long history ago of humanity where you did know all the people, but even then you're inheriting structures from like out of history. Long dead people set up like organizational structures that you're still dealing with. And it's not like you knew the people who set up like the tribe structure back in the day. Maybe the reason it doesn't scale is Dunbar's number. Well, I think there's bigger problems than Dunbar's number. I think the problem is that like they're really starting from too small of a human group. And people who don't know, Dunbar's number is gets discussed here a bit, where you just can't know over a certain number of people. Yeah. So Frank says we can't have structures bigger than a couple of dozen without simplifying people to roles. But I think it's more than that, at least for these other theories where they're starting off with just a few people, because structures last a long time, institutions last a long time, and you won't know the people who set up institutions because they're long dead. And so if you're thinking you are if you like your life is dictated by something you're like participating in, even if it's only a small group of people, like it may have been set up many, many years before you were born and continued that long. Gotta love Dunbar's number. Yep. It's interesting. A lot of people keep bringing that up and seem to like it a lot. Okay. Dunbar's number is much better than his letter, which is J for some reason. Interesting. Agni! Evavisa, how you doing? What were you up to? How was the meditation or whatever else you were up to? What's going on? Give Agni a shout out. I like shouting out people. It's nice. I tried to shout at Agni, not evolve yourself. How you doing, Agni? JT, what's going on? Oh, man. Hope you're doing good, JT. Peaceful guide meditation. I need to get back to meditating. I really do. I've not been doing anything physical. It's like this has just been worse and worse for me. But like, yeah, welcome in, Raiders. Anyone who doesn't know me, Noger, No Gray, whatever you want to call me, I don't give a shit. We read academic philosophy, discuss some philosophy here, and try to just figure out if anyone actually has anything to say. But yeah, we're in the middle of paper. We're just finishing up all the people that this author says are wrong, and we're saying, look, in big groups, it doesn't make sense that you can scale up, because if you're scaling up from 2 people, fine, but big groups, you're never going to know everybody. So you can't have a theory where you have to know what the other people are thinking, because if in a big group, it's just not possible to know what everyone else is thinking. Frank says, I mean, if you think of it as a specific number, it's garbage, but as explaining a limitation on a particular kind of cognitive resource, it's really useful. That makes sense. It's like, yeah, how many people can you actually engage with and kind of keep a mental model of? Very hard. You don't got that much mental space to think about that many people, because people are complex. So think about that many complex things is hard. 4. Okay. Well, now we know that Ivan Neo is an epistemicist. There is an exact number, and it is 4. That's how many people you can think about. All right. I do love that not that this matters to anybody else out there, but I like the term epistemicist as like an insult. Someone who thinks there are exact numbers for things. Frank says, I think I have a much lower Dunbar number than other people do. Other people are very stressful, and there's a lot of different, it's like people are set up themselves very differently. And so the idea that like you want to deal with a lot of people, I'm sure there's people who deal with a lot of people, fewer than others, but I don't know if it like actually makes sense to say like there is a number, or there even should be a right number. It's like, this is sort of like one of these sort of like neurotypical, not neurotypical things. Like, how many people do you need to deal with? So it's like, it's just going to be different for different people, but it's interesting. Frank says, people say they are bad with names, but remember faces. I'm bad with names, faces, personal details, etc. I've gotten a lot better with names recently, so it's like, yeah. Ivan says, on a scale of 0 to 10, I resent that mark at a 7.42. Exactly. Thank you. So it's like, this is one of those things, like, some people don't like dealing with people, other people do like dealing with people, and so I just see it as, there's going to be a limit, but that's just a normal cognitive capacity limit. How many things can you deal with? And people are just complex things. Viper says, now the specific number with our margin is useful. I've noticed it a lot. For example, when I divided the number of households in my region by the number of doctors, Dunbar's number. Yeah, so there's a load of like the amount of people that a single doctor can like reasonably see. So that's interesting. So maybe it has something to do with like, growth or whatever, like the number E or whatever it is. I don't know, but that is interesting, because it might just be a good average. Excuse me. A good average to keep in mind about people on the whole. Okay. Blah blah blah. Try that in the U.S. Why would the U.S. doctors need to know their patients? Yeah, it's another problem we have here. Okay, but again, this is the scaling problem. This also goes right to the scaling problem. It's okay with small, like up to a certain amount, but you can't really scale past that. And maybe it is Dunbar's number. So that's what we were saying. Okay, in the next section, the author argues, Kate says, for a form of minimal cooperation that relies on roles in a group organizational structure, collective intentionality as analyzed by Bratman, Gilbert, and Searle is not necessary for minimal cooperation among members of organized groups. Before turning to what I take is required for minimal cooperation in organized groups, what I am not arguing for needs to be clearly specified. Kate's aim is not to argue that the account of collective intentionality and cooperation just considered fail. One of the accounts or another in the same spirit might be correct for small groups working together on a specific joint action. For instance, a case of two people organizing a closet together might require symmetric attitudes involving representation of others' mental states. Moreover, Bratman and Gilbert explicitly state that these are their primary target cases. So my argument is not against their accounts given their particular target phenomena. Yeah, it's like, again, if you're talking about two people, you don't need some grand organizational structure. It's unnecessary. Author also says, I am not arguing that members of organized groups never cooperate in ways that should be analyzed in terms of joint commitments, representations of others' intentions, or we intentions. Rather, I argue that there are cases of minimal cooperation among members of organized groups that do not involve collective intentions as spelled out in any of the accounts just considered. The accounts considered above fail to give necessary conditions for minimal cooperation. A theory relying on collective intentionality might be correct for cases involving extensive or what Patternot calls egregious cooperation, but minimal cooperation among individuals playing roles in group organizations does not place such stringent mental requirements on agents. Again, so yeah, it's the mental requirements down here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Finally, I'm not claiming that the creation of organized groups or organized group structures is independent of collective intentionality. We might be, so this is all just, it might be sometimes in the case of what the other people say. You're very, very nice for saying you might be wrong, that the other people might be right sometimes, Kate. Okay, it might be the case that an account of collective intentionality, like those just considered, is often part of the explanation for how groups or a group structure comes to be. For instance, some individuals might form a we intention to create a group or a group with a particular defined roles. Tomasello suggests that cooperative interactions in humans requires that participants coordinate their roles, their plans, and subplans of action, including helping the other in her role as needed, which are interdependent. Yeah, it's like if you're going to make a company, you have to organize it. But then once you make it, you hire 1 million people. It ain't the same thing for everybody else. That's fine. These minimal roles that are formed in one-off joint actions are plausibly the precursor to the reified institutional roles that humans create in organized group structures. I am not arguing for a view of how organized groups or group structures come about. As far as I'm concerned here, it is an open question whether a group coming to be requires collective intentions. Viper says, so this is why Noger assigned me the role of mod. He doesn't want to know me. I assigned you the role of mod because you were like complaining that like the Twitch thing fucked up because you were VIP and your yearly recap said that you were mod in 7 chats or something when you were VIP in like 7 chats. And I don't remember if that's the right number or whatever. And so you were like, no one in their right mind would make me a mod, and so I went and made you a mod. And that is also why the Walterverse is a mod, because he said no one in their right mind would mod me. And last time he was here, he was like, what the fuck? He was like, why am I mod? I was like, because you said the magic words. Okay. My ears are dying. Okay, that is a question in social ontology rather than a question about the conditions required for cooperation. Instead, I am arguing that even if complicated symmetric attitudes, the formation of a joint commitment or special we intentions are needed to bring about an organizational structure or group, these are not necessary for members of organized groups to minimally cooperate. Exactly, Vipers. No, not $1 million. No one would make me mod as a stream shibboleth, yeah. So, yeah, but you actually have to, like, not mean it when you say it. That's the trouble. Then I might do it. No, you actually have to mean it when you say it. Not the, mean it as, like, I'm trying to get it to happen. To put the point another way, consider diachronic and synchronic accounts of cooperation in organized groups. It might be true that a complex representational account with symmetric attitudes is required to create an organized group with a particular structure composed of roles and relations. A diachronic account may rely on a view of cooperation like one discussed above. Yet, once an organized group with various defined roles exists, minimal cooperation need not involve anything as mentally complex as that posited by Bratman, Gilbert, or Searle. A synchronic account of minimal cooperation among members of an organized group might be quite different. The organization with defined roles allows for group members to minimally cooperate by playing particular roles. Once a group is built, the ladder of collective intentionality that was used in constructing it can be knocked away. So this is the whole point right here. This, and then we're going down to here. Once the hard work of organization is finished, then everyone else, the mental load is taken off, and then they can just play their role. They are just now a cog in the machine. And so this is the kicker right there. It's that once we get rid of the way and it's not just organizing the group and getting it started, the metaphysics of creation. Once that's not out of the picture, because that's not what we're talking about in this paper, once you get that out of the way, what actually are the powers that are granted by that organizational structure in that like creation of that group? Okay. Once an organizational structure is in place, complex mental work involving mutual knowledge, representation of others' mental states, and formation of joint commitments are not necessary for cooperation. And so this is the goal. You are now offloading all of that work onto the organization, the metaphysics of the organization. It takes care of all of that. Okay. 3. And where are we? 11 of 19. We can get there. I'm not doing too bad. Minimal cooperation plus roles. In section 1, I argued that organizational groups are structured wholes. They have structures with roles that are defined in ways that depend on relations to one another. The interdependence of roles relates to the powers, obligations, and rights role players have. It also relates to the way actions undertaken by one role player might be part of larger actions that involve other role players. Organizational structures with defined roles allow for a division of labor and also for a division of knowledge. No one member of a team might understand the entire range of activities and roles involved. Organizational structures can allow many individuals together to carry out complex actions that no one member could fully understand or complete. See, this is the thing. This is like maybe I'll go see that movie, like the Manhattan Project, where you have Oppenheimer trying to create a nuclear bomb, and a whole bunch of different scientists have to work together on many different parts, and they literally can't know what the other ones are doing because it's like a national security thing. They don't want any one person to know all the things, and so there's different silos of information, but Oppenheimer has to put it all together himself to make a bomb. And so how do you actually do that? But again, this is an interesting example because you can't actually come together and discuss everything. The image that came to your mind was one of the British ships of the line. Exactly. Same sort of thing. Military strategy is like this. Only the general understands, and everyone else doesn't. Yeah, and that's fair too. That the last sentence made you think of the entire discipline of programming. In programming, you take pieces, modules, and systems from all different areas, and the only person who kind of knows what's going on, you kind of have an idea what your programming is, but do you know how all the different libraries you're using work and what they're doing and all the other stuff? No. It's you only know sort of the other thing, and then how it comes together, and all the different pieces. You might be making one part of a project, someone else might be making another, and how that all comes together. There's a project manager that runs it, but again, no one actually knows all the details because that would literally be impossible. When I made my Minesweeper game, I used a Minesweeper generator. If anyone doesn't know, I played Minesweeper pretty well for a long time, and I have a Minesweeper website where you can play against other people. But the generator for solvable games is run by one of the guys who does AMD kernel hacking. It's do I know what that guy does? No. But can I use the thing he made? Yes. So yeah. Okay, so let's consider an example. Suppose a consulting firm is tasked with determining whether a merger between Company A and Company B would benefit Company A. Viper says it's not even defined groups, it's different programs interacting through APIs making something new. Yeah, absolutely. So there's the thing. It's I was interacting with the I should find out his name. He also did PuTTY for Windows Telnet or whatever. So if you use the PuTTY Telnet program, it's the same guy. Like, and do I actually know how, like I use the command line to use his thing. So it's like an API to create my website is using his command line program to do something else. I have to go hack that. I want to make some more stuff out of that, but it's on the long list of things I have not gotten around to. It's kind of annoying. Got to do more stuff. Simon Tatham, thank you. Yeah, like, you might be running the same like code from the guy who it made my, like, I use from his to make Minesweeper in your computer right now. So it's like, this is a brilliant dude. In order to determine what to recommend, thereby meeting their goal, the firm puts together a consulting team with various roles. Suppose further that the team has many members who are located across multiple offices and that many team members do not know of one another. Roles involve responsibilities and obligations that normatively bind role players in various ways. The consulting team includes roles that require role players to research similar past mergers and past findings on to members who will include them in a report. Other members have roles that require analyzing a merger's impact on stockholder and customer perception. They too report their findings to members tasked with writing a final report, and so on. Through many members playing their assigned roles, that is, carrying out tasks and interacting in ways team roles require, the team concludes that Company A should merge with Company B, as it will benefit Company A to do so. In the example, some individuals might have been working closely with others in ways that fit with accounts like Bratman, Gilberts, and Searles. Yet other members never directly interact and have no knowledge of one another. The team had the goal of determining whether a merger should be recommended. Every member, let's suppose, know that she is part of a team that has said goal. Each intends to act in a way defined by her role to meet the goal. The team met its goal in a way that involved collaboration, and it wouldn't be natural to say cooperation. Yet the case does not involve cooperation on any of the three accounts considered in the last section. Let's see why. Bratman requires that each of the individuals participating in shared cooperative activity know that each other individual with whom they are cooperating and has an intention of the form I intend that we J. Suppose that K and Simona are two members of the consulting team. Neither knows the other personally, and neither knows that the other is playing a particular role in the team. Kai does know that Simona has an intention of the form I intend that we determine whether a merger between Company A and Company B should be recommended. Kai does not even know that Simona exists, so she knows nothing about her mental states. If Bratman's account had to be met for some individuals to be engaged in cooperative action, the members of the team would not count as cooperating even in a minimal sense. The account fails to capture that this is a case of cooperation. I'm wondering, could you use like some sort of John Doe or like Jane Roe, sort of like a generic individual, like a dummy name, but that you say, if there was a person, I would have the same thing. I think that doesn't really work here because you're supposed to actually like have some sort of, that they know that you know everything. You did not know that word, shibboleth. Interesting, Vipers. It's a good word. And thank you, Frank. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it wouldn't work for Bratman's account, but like it gets a little closer. Maybe Bratman could like do some wiggle room. Not a lot of Jews here. Yeah, well, you learned it on the West Wing. Well, that was what's his name? So yeah. Gotta learn get your Yiddish up. But a lot of shibboleths, exactly. Gilbert requires that two or more people cooperating carry out an action together are motivated by the existence of a joint commitment. In this condition 3 in our analysis quoted above. She also holds that joint commitments must be created by all of the parties bound by the commitment. In the case of the consulting team, both conditions could fail. For instance, Simona might not be motivated by the joint commitment to meet a certain goal, but rather to commitment to play the role that she has been assigned. Yeah, shibboleths all the way down, exactly. It's all just things we say. She might want to play the assigned role because she cares about the firm, others' perception of her, keeping her job, or for any number of other reasons. She still seems to be at least minimally cooperating, even if she is not motivated by a joint commitment. It's like, yeah, imagine someone is doing something just for the paycheck. They don't give a shit about the end goal, but they're cooperating. This alone is sufficient to show that Gilbert's account would not classify the team member as cooperating. Further, Simona might not have contributed to forming the commitment to determine whether Company A should pursue a merger with Company B. Until you reach the cosmic harm, she bowl. In fact, no member of the team needs to be involved in setting this as the team's end. The commitment to that end might have been set by those higher up in the larger hierarchical organization of the consulting firm. Given that the team members are cooperating, meeting Gilbert's account cannot be necessary for minimal cooperation. Searle requires we intentions and common knowledge for cooperation. The case under consideration can be augmented to explicitly involve members of the team who lack we intentions, but who are, at least in minimal sense, cooperating with others. Suppose that Layla is another member of the team. Layla has no thoughts in an irreducible we mode, but Layla does intend to play her role as well as possible. She understands that playing her role involves others playing their roles. For instance, she knows that part of playing her role is to pass information on to the others on the team that others cannot successfully play their role without her playing her role. Yet she never has a we intention. She thinks about what she is doing and about the goal she's taking part in, but lacks we intentions. Alright, so like this Layla is sort of like the automaton. Like you can plug an automaton into a cooperative thing, and as long as they know what they're supposed to be doing like on their own, they don't actually have to care about like what we are doing, as long as they know they are supposed to be doing it. Like their little job. Okay, by amending the case in this way, it does not seem that we intentions have been smuggled in, and if they have been an argument to that, effect is needed. Moreover, it seems that Layla is cooperating with others on the team to provide information for a report and on determining whether to advise Company A to pursue a merger. This provides evidence that Searle's account also fails to establish necessary conditions for cooperation. Yeah, see, if you just got someone who's just like, doing their job, are they cooperating? Yes, but like they're cooperating in a different way. The corporate team case involves a role that requires individuals playing them to cooperate, at least in a minimal sense. Playing a role places normative demands on how role players are to interact and what they are supposed to do. If roles are played, role players will interact in ways that aim at a shared end in what appears to be a case of cooperative activity. This is so even if members of the team do not know others and do not have representation of others' mental states. The accounts of collective intentionality fail to categorize the behavior of members of the team as cooperative. A different account of minimal cooperation is needed. An account of the cooperation in the case just considered needs to take seriously the relevance of roles in an organizational structure. I propose that there is a minimal form of cooperation in which some individuals cooperate in fying just in case they play roles in an organized group structure that work toward a common goal. Roles in a group structure function together to allow the larger group to achieve ends or goals. They are defined in ways that are interdependent, that are normatively binding, and that require interaction to achieve the goal. Minimal cooperation is achieved when playing roles is combined with a common goal. Okay, so now we finally got somewhere. This is roles are combined with a common goal. Let me do that better. I know there's a lot of words because I think this is a book chapter, and so I don't think Kate was trying to save her words here, the word count. But it's just like, finally we're getting someone when the roles can be combined. So you're playing with blocks here, you're playing with cogs, and you can make a building out of them. Google's how many Jews there are? 335. There you go. There's more than 2. That's even less than the number of Pokemon. Google's again, yes it is. No intrusive thoughts, just stay out, you'll get arrested. Yeah, cackling Jews and little red and white balls. Yeah, that will get you in trouble, Vipers. And doing battle with them? Maybe that'd be funny. Yeah. So, this is the thing. Finally, Kate has gotten rid of all the other people, and she's finally starting to say what she wants to say. It's just taking a little bit while to get there. Okay, the minimal sort of cooperation Kate proposes here is not as robust as cooperative activity as theorized by Bratman, Gilbert, Searle, and others. It need not involve being motivated by a joint commitment, having representation of others' intentions, or having special we intentions. That's terrible, Vipers. But I take it that it fits with a common sense of understanding of cooperation. In the case studies, individuals are working together by playing roles to achieve a goal. That certainly is at least a minimal form of cooperation in the way we ordinarily understand it. The way roles are institutionalized or reified in group organizational structures allows for more minimal mental requirements on agents engaged in cooperative activity. Members of certain sorts of groups, those with organizational structures, can cooperate in a way that requires less internal mental representation and less in terms of motivational requirements. Okay, so now we've got a secondary thing. We weren't really talking about this. It got mentioned above with Layla saying that she didn't care about what was it, Simona? I forget. One of them. When you don't actually care about the goals of the group, you just have to care about playing a role. Individuals must play their roles that aim at a common goal. Playing a role requires standing in the right relation to other group members, completing particular tasks, and having certain rights and obligations. The complex mental demands placed on individuals by accounts that start with pairs of individuals coordinating actions are not necessary when individuals play roles in groups with organizational structures. The people have to sign on to being part of an organization. And so in some sense, you do have to have that level of sign on, though. You do have to have that level of, level of buy-in. They have to not organize with the other individuals, but you have to organize with the organization. And that is something. So there has to be, of course, this level of buy-in with the organization. You have to, when you get a job, you have to, sit through orientation and, sign a piece of paper saying, I will abide by the employee handbook. I did this when I got my job. It's or a lot of times you have to do this sort of thing. On smaller scales, you don't, because then you're dealing a lot of times more with individuals. When you're doing one of these big organizations, then you have to abide by the organizational stuff. So there is some sort of thing there, though, about some interpersonal or interconnection of individuals, just individual and individual organization, like the policy. Okay, while individuals and groups will have intentions and might have representation of others' mental states, these are not required for minimal cooperation given the existence of defined roles in an organizational group structure. See, this is a thing. How do you actually define the group roles in an organized group structure? It's not necessarily clear how that happens. It definitely does happen. But again, this goes back to the creation of organizations, which this paper is not talking about. It's just sort of look, once these things exist, how do we organize ourselves and cooperate? That's what we're talking about here. But again, it's already sort of hiding the super hard metaphysical question of how are things brought into creation, like organizations. Vipers asks, so is all law just role definition? So you were talking about the ontology of laws. No, because you need a pointy end of the stick in a law. Now, what kind of law? Are you talking about legal law? Or are you talking about a law of nature? So in law of nature, then you have to be able to experiment and try it out and see what nature says. In legal stuff, you define the Supreme Court or whatever, you have a constitution, you define it that way, and then you have to interpret it at that point. So is all law just role definition? Well, it's more than that. You have to have roles. You have to so you have I don't know how the legal system is set up in England, the Great Britain where you're at, but in the United States, you've got the Constitution, which is sort of the final wordy arbiter. Then you've got the three branches of government, and so the law is set by Congress here, and so there are institutions. And, I know, but this is why I don't feel bad about saying it. But so we've got institutions that are filled with people. And so the law is just role definition. Well, the government defines it, but then it's also constituted by it. And so you are sort of making it this way. But yes, in some sense, yes, it is. But there's more to it because you need people to actually enact it. And that's where you have to go back to the founders or the creators of the Constitution, sign on to the thing, and then all just do it. But that's a little bit more complex of organizational creation, and that's why I'm saying that is a slightly separate problem, because that's more complicated to instantiate the law and the government than to play your role once that's already created. It's it's different to create the Senate and then to just be a senator. So, but yeah, this is the thing. And then you get a Supreme Court here, which is just super legislature, which, just they get to lie and make shit up if they want to, because, who's going to stop them? They're the final arbiters. and they get to, define what that role is. Oh, Plato, yeah, sure. What sparked the thought was Plato's myth of the okay. Interesting. But I mean, yeah, this is basically, keep in mind, all definition is strategic. You define things the way you want them, you want to deal with them. If someone has defined a certain setup, and this is just advice for any budding philosophers out there, because this was given to me, you have to catch the philosophers early. If you're reading something, see how they define their terms right at the get-go. What are they starting to say? Because that is where they're going to build in all the structure that they want, because once they have that structure, then they're just filling it out afterwards, and their conclusions are going to follow. Then everything is just playing its role from there on out. So you do have to start off with the definition, and Plato is just like that. He creates his own myths because the rest of his metaphysics and philosophy will follow from it. So I can't even think of the myth of the metals at the moment. But whatever, it's all the same stuff. This is the thing. It's that's why Plato had his theory of remembering. He had the theory of the forms and a whole thing. He wanted his theory of the forms, and the only way you could have that is if the world was perfect, you came from a perfect world, and then you could remember it with the proper kind of thought. It's like, well, all right, how do you set that up? Well, you have to have a whole sort of super structure, and then everything works out later, kind of. But anyway, that's just how philosophers organize their work. So if we want to go back and we can discuss this later and criticize this paper, I can guarantee you what you do is you go back to the start and you find the definitions, because we haven't really been complaining about what's going on in the body of this paper. Sometimes we do, but most of the time this has just been going through it, and we haven't been complaining about it. It's about different men having different qualities of souls, gold, silver, and bronze. Interesting, yeah. But again, this is how you set it up. You set it up the way you want, where you've got different qualities of souls, and then you can then talk about the qualities of people. And it's well, I'm not really criticizing you. I'm criticizing something that is essential to you, but it's not your fault. You're a different soul. It's yeah, shut up, Plato. Okay. So, one might worry that the account that Kate has offered is too minimal. Let's consider two cases that might be used to press that worry. First, consider a spy network. The individuals in the network might not know anyone else in the network. Moreover, they might not understand what their roles are and what end they are helping to work towards, or how they are contributing to that end. Nevertheless, the combined efforts of those in the network might fulfill the end. Are they cooperating? Intuitions about such cases are mixed. The account I have given could be adapted to accord with both stances on the case by expanding on what is required for a common goal. If one takes the spies not to be minimally cooperating, the account could be adapted to require some mental requirement on having a common or shared goal. For instance, one might argue that minimal cooperating in spying requires playing roles in an organized group structure that they work towards a goal that they all know. In the spy network case, not all know the goal. Oh, there goes my voice. So the case does not involve minimal cooperation. In contrast, if one takes a spy in the network to be minimally cooperating, one could have a common goal. Having a common goal to require less. It might require that roles are functionally integrated to achieve an end. One might require that just that someone with authority over the group know the goal for it to be a common goal. Yeah, this is the thing. If the cooperation is from the perspective of the spy master, then everyone is cooperating to the spy master's goal. If you're asking, are they cooperating from the level of the spy has no idea who they're cooperating with, or even if they are cooperating, and maybe they're not even cooperating with other people at times. Maybe the spy master fucked up. So it's maybe not. But that's just a measure of, that's a type of perspective, and that can be adapted here. So, what do you mean by cooperation at that point? So again, then nowadays we have stochastic terrorism or some big bullshit word. Basically, you can rabble rouse, and are the rabble that you've roused that are causing problems for other people, are they cooperating? No, but they are cooperating with the sort of the rabble rouser, and in that sense, yeah, they are cooperating with you, and you are sort of controlling them, and it's a big sort of organization, even though you don't even know the people. You've just riled everyone up, and you expected these things to happen. And so this is more of a mob sort of mentality. And does a mob cooperate? Yeah, kind of, mostly. So, like, this is the thing. Like, do you actually think mobs are cooperating with each other? Maybe not in the sense of, like, do they all know the same thing? But, like, are they, if they're being whipped up by someone, you know, standing up, getting them to go, like, riot or something, then yeah, they are sort of all got something together. Do I consider myself a rabble rouser? Not usually. Evolve yourself. That doesn't mean I'm against it. And I have definitely done some stupid things before. So, I'm a philosopher. Yeah, I'm also might be expecting to be dead before anything I have done is appreciated at this point. Doesn't look like I'm getting much play. So, in that case, I'm like a dead rabble rouser. But like, no, I actually expect to be. I was a pretty good. Well, I don't know. Wasn't that great. Well, I was a pretty good kid. I think I'm gonna be much more trouble the older I get. So like maybe in the future, or maybe soon, but not quite yet. But yeah, maybe more trouble as I'm going on. So yeah, in that case, maybe a potential rabble rouser. Oh, thank you, Agni. I appreciate you and the way you bring philosophy to Twitch. Well, thank you. Yes, like I come here and I do weird stuff, like, and you know, this is philosophy roulette 447. Like, look at this fucking 447. So it's like nothing happens without a lot of effort. And so it's like, I thank you all for being here. It's like, it takes a long time. For many of the early things, I was just, broadcasting to one or none people. It's like, whatever. It's cool. It takes a while. No one else has that tenacity. Yeah, well, I don't know exactly what it is. It's like stupidity sometimes, but like, we'll see. It's like a lot, things are, persistence is usually wins out in the end. I will let you read that one, Agni. Okay. Second, consider the parts of a car engine. Each part plays a role so that they together function to convert chemical energy into mechanical energy in order to move the car. They do not, however, seem to be cooperating even in a minimal sense. Just functioning in concord is seemingly not enough for cooperation. While the account of minimal cooperation I have given emphasizes roles and functions, it does not take the parts of a car engine to be cooperating. I don't know, people might take this, but it would be metaphorical, I guess. Do car engine parts cooperate with each other? Well, thank you for being here. You've got to head out and get some food. I'll be listening. Thanks for the lurk. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Hope to see you soon. Hope you have some good food. To see why, note that I argue that there is a form of minimal cooperation that involves playing roles in an organized group structure. Roles in group organizational structures involve norms. Okay, so now, see here. All right, so this is part of the problem here is we have to, this is the metaphysics. You are defining organizations already in a certain way, and you're organizing them in a certain way to eliminate certain things that Kate doesn't want to call cooperation. And so this is not much of an argument. This is defining herself out of the problem, in my opinion. Not that she's doing a bad job. She already said she wasn't explaining how organizations are created. That's not her job here. She's just saying this is what they are. And so she's already set herself up to eliminate cases she doesn't want. You already have to have an organized group structure, and roles and structures have norms, and obviously norms are only things that like agents can follow, because otherwise it wouldn't be a norm. It'd be like a law of nature or something. Okay, role players are obligated to one another and have responsibility to complete tasks, give directions, and report to others. The organizational structure of a car engine is defined in terms of ways parts operate, but not in terms of the norms. Yeah, cars function in terms of the physics and engineering, not in terms of metaphysical norms saying this is what you should be doing or ought to be doing. That there is no ought for a car engine. It either functions the way it does or it doesn't, because that's the way it was made. And if it doesn't function that way, it's broken. That's like it. But like a organization might not function the way it is, but that's because someone's not following the norm. It's not breaking a law of nature, though. It's different. But it's defined as different. Okay, the members of the corporate team are correctly classified as minimally cooperating, while the parts of the car engine are not taken to be minimally cooperating. While more could be said to develop a theory of minimal cooperation among members of organized groups in greater detail, I will leave that the account as sketched here. In the next section, I briefly consider how the account fits into the larger project of theorizing social phenomena and social ontology. Yeah, so this is the first like straight up hand wave, but that's like in some sense not that bad of a hand wave because this is outside the scope of the paper. Okay, internalism, externalism, and continuity in social theorizing. Accounts of social phenomena, social entities, and social facts have largely centered on mental representations of some form or another. Moreover, as we saw, there has also been a common assumption that theorizing about the social can start small and then be scaled up. Tarango argues that many hold a continuity thesis he spells out as follows. Social phenomena are determined by collective intentions and their shared contents in small groups as much as, and in the same way as, in complex situations. Hey, what's up, Rethius? How you been? Viper says, I wonder if collaborative AI will evolve to assign low compute roles rather than access to data of all other AI agents in the group. Oh, yeah. I mean, that would just be some sort of, yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, why wouldn't it assign, certain things, data access and whatnot? Okay. Yeah, so this is again a scale-up thing. The preceding discussion could serve as a challenge to certain views that center on mental representations, mental states, or mental content. Whether it challenges the continuity thesis depends on how small-scale cases should be understood. To clarify the discussion, I return to the terminology introduced earlier. They need gonk droids, yeah. As I use the term, yeah, Rethius, you might actually appreciate this because I know you train a lot of people. This paper's on cooperation and what actually is it to cooperate in large groups, not small groups. And so this person is arguing, actually, no, the person, Kate Ritchie, that how to get people to cooperate is really a thing to get people to buy into the roles that they play in the organization and and you don't need to know all the things that everyone else is doing. You only need to know your role and sort of your place in the organization. So, and but like the idea that's different here is that in some sense there's a metaphysical structure. You are granted powers by assuming a role, and then you have powers within the organization, and then you have those abilities, and then insofar as you understand what the organization is kind of up to, you can perform those abilities well without understanding all the things the other people do, and they have different powers and roles than you do. In a corporate world, that is easy. Yeah, so this is talking about the theory behind it, Rethius. Viper says, I'm wondering if the reason we use roles is a bandwidth thing. Speaking isn't high bandwidth. This stream is being a prime example. I mean, this is the point. I've said this many times. This is the point I like having a face cam while doing philosophy. Is like you get to see a lot more information about how I'm reacting to the philosophy when we're doing this. And this is what Frank was saying earlier. It's bandwidth. It's a lot less, and mentioned by the author too. Kate is Kate said, like, it's just, you don't have to know anywhere near as much when you're dealing with a role. So you don't want to use the high bandwidth. You get to use lower bandwidth when dealing with other things. So it's like how much information is being transmitted just by the speaking versus the video versus the whole thing. So yeah. Yes, presenting is very high bandwidth if we're talking stress. Yeah, it can be extremely, people are afraid of presenting. For good reason. It's like you're dealing with a lot of people at once. And like you're realizing all the people might be analyzing you and you get nervous about that. I understand. I've been doing this for a long time now. I don't give a shit. It's like, I don't care what you think. Like, criticize away. Pepper says, I mean in terms of transferring information, I can speak like a 56K modem. No, actually, I think I'm doing a lot more information than you realize. Like I said, this is why the face thing is there. This is like you're getting a lot of emotion. You get my reactions and the concepts I'm transferring. You do realize how hard it is to type in chat and make clever comments sometimes. That's extremely difficult, and like I can say much more complex things much more quickly this way than like you can in chat. And so I have a lot more bandwidth than you do. Well, exactly, Ruthius. Yeah. You get good and it becomes fun to do. Like, that's the thing, if you like presenting. And so this is definitely, there's definitely an asymmetry in the bandwidth that the streamer has versus chat has. Now, of course, chat can go really fast, but, like, yeah. It's like, and I'm transmitting it much higher. I'm transmitting at 6 megabytes per second here. So it's like, I mean, I'm transmitting 6 megabytes to you guys per second. Note to self, must learn not to double down on jokes once it's indicated they aren't funny and in fact being taken seriously. You know us, like philosophers, like, and to be fair, sometimes your jokes are funny. Sometimes jokes are less funny, of course. But, like, you know, sometimes I'm reading stuff and I can't tell immediately if it's a joke. And it's like, well, do I have something to say about it? And I know you're like, oh, yeah, there's no information being communicated in the stream. But, like, I want to make the point. So it's like, yeah. So it's like, I know you were, like, making fun of me at, like, I can't even get up to dial-up speeds, but whatever. It's still relevant. Okay. Where were we? Okay, so yeah, we're discussing scaling up organizations. Kate says, as I used the terminology internalist views of the social. As I use the terminology, internalist views of the social are views that take social phenomena or entities to be grounded, constituted, constructed by mental representations, mental states, or mental contents. On my usage, externalist views of the social are those that take social phenomena or entities to be grounded, constituted, constructed by features that are external to mental states and mental contents, like documents, laws, or material resources. Yeah, okay. So the internal stuff is like, do you feel like you're part of the organization? Do you think about it? And the other one is, are you, like, written into the bylaws as a member? Or, like, yeah, not written to the bylaws, but are you written to, like, the ledger as a member? So, yeah, what are those? I don't know if you guys want to talk about crypto distributed organizations, but, like, this is where we're getting. Okay. As we saw above, prominent accounts of collective intentionality and cooperation rely on representations of others' intentions, special ways of intending, and common knowledge. Such views are, at least to a large extent, internalist. Views that are more internalist than externalist are also common in social ontology. Collective attitudes, intentions, and representations of a kind itself are often taken to constitute or ground social entities and facts. Other views in social ontology make mental states, contents, and representations less central. Thomason argues that some social kinds might not depend on representations of themselves. She states social entities like racism, economic recession, class systems, and gender-biased power structures are typically not intentionally created, either directly or indirectly, by accepting constitutive rules about entities of that kind. They are instead byproducts of more basic social and institutional facts. A general view of social ontology should not be so internalist so as to necessitate that representations of social entities are operative in the construction of the social world. Yeah, I know, it's like certain things, like you could say like economics suppression or class systems, that's done by capitalism and stuff, and that isn't like what people are thinking. That's done by, like, you know, the laws set up to encourage things like capitalism, and that's not only about how people think about it, but that's enshrined in, like, the legal structure and things like that, like what it is that you can make certain kind of sales and buy things. So it's like that is part of what constitutes social ontology. Things in our world are organized by things that are permissible in our legal system, or impermissible for that matter. Okay, the argument I gave above goes further. It is not just that minimal cooperation does not require a representational state about being cooperative. It is the stronger general claim that collective intentions, recognition, acceptance, and joint commitments are not necessary for minimal cooperation, at least when individuals are members of an organized group. The view is more externalist than a view that only goes so far as to reject that a social kind K relies on representations of K. The argument I gave is closer to views that give accounts of social entities in terms of non-mental features. For Epstein argues that facts about social entities can depend on facts that do not involve mental states, intentions, or even people. Tarango recently argued for an externalist view of social entities. On his view, institutional facts and entities are not always grounded in collective belief, acceptance, or intentions. Rather, institutions and institutional statutes, duties, and rights are characterized by and grounded in the tendency to defer to elements that are external to the content of collective intentions, such as laws, declarations, and contracts. I agree that not all social entities and not all social facts are characterized by or grounded in ways that are largely internalist views of social requirements. Moreover, the argument I have given shows that externalist views of the social can be extended beyond social entities to at least one social phenomenon. Yeah, so it's like, again, if you were playing a role, the role is not, it was given to you by the organization. You didn't just have that thought already. So there had to be something, like the role had to exist in sort of this, in the organization already, and then you inhabit that role. Okay, whether the preceding argument supports a rejection of the continuity thesis depends on what is required for cooperation in pairs or small groups. Here I have argued that members of organized groups can cooperate without shared mental states, intentions, or joint commitments. I have not, however, argued for a view of what is required for cooperating among individuals who are not members of organized groups. So the status of the continuity thesis is left open and two possibilities arise. If an account like Bratman, Gilbert, or Searles is correct for cooperation at a small scale, then the preceding argument does require a rejection of the continuity thesis. A more internalist account relying on collective intentions would explain cooperation in pairs or small groups. Frank says, I don't think the role does have to exist before you begin to perform it. No. Well, it kind of does. In the organization has to exist. And so the space in the organization, so the specific role, you're right. In the sense that, like, you could create the role there, but the organization has to exist, and somehow you already have to be cooperating in that role. So yeah. Yes, it can, exactly. It's not a whole new organization. That's really the point, is that the, like, sort of the space for the role has to exist within the organization. And that's really what I meant. It's not like it's a whole new organization. So yeah, I think we're on the same page there. It's just the organization has to pre-exist the individual joining it in some sense. And otherwise you're in this sort of like organization creation thing, which the author's not talking about here. They just are saying to be cooperating, the organization has to sort of pre-exist. You love the fucking go get it. Exactly. We're going to have iced coffee at my work because I nagged my boss a lot about having iced coffee. So I created the role of iced coffee now. We are going to have more iced coffee at my job because I nagged my boss about it enough. Hooray. Okay, a more internalist count relying on collective intentions would explain cooperation in pairs or small groups. A more externalist count that relies on playing roles in an organizational structure would explain other cases of minimal cooperation. Yes, exactly. I nagged him since last September, and now we might get something. It's going to make my day-to-day better. You don't understand. This has like been a complaint from a lot of people, and I actually got it done by nagging my boss enough. Yeah, and they're gonna sell it too, like to the public. Like there's like a public facing stuff where I work. They're gonna sell it. They're probably gonna make a lot of money on it. Mark up like crazy. Okay, this would reject. Oh God, losing it. But we're almost done. You can see concluding remarks are right there. Okay, this would reject rejection of the. This is a problem. This would reject the continuity thesis. This rejection of the continuity. This is too bad, but what are you going to do? This rejection of the continuity thesis and a methodology that seeks a continuous and single theory for cooperation in all cases. This was rejection. That's how you sound on your emails. Oh man, like I hate people that write me crappy emails at work. I'm like, this is a professional organization. Could you not write me a crappy email? You can use full sentences. You're adults I'm like emailing with. Like, come on, people. Alternatively, one might take the preceding discussion to provide the beginning of a framework for a theory of cooperation that upholds the continuity thesis. On this view, cooperation would always involve playing roles in some structure or other, whether it is in the structure of a legislative body, that of a family unit, or that involved when two people attempt to move a piano together. Such a view would be very different from the sorts of views that have dominated the literature on cooperation and collective intentionality. It would uphold the continuity thesis at least to the extent that roles would be relied on in all cases of cooperation. It is plausible, however, any viable version of a role-based view of cooperation would also posit some discontinuity in the mental requirements for cooperation in small-scale one-off interactions and for large-scale long-term cooperation in groups. You're shocked how my shorthand, because I came shorthand because you're a complete grammar barbarian. Yes, if anyone didn't notice, my name looks a lot like my IRL name you can see in the About section. Viper says, you can write full sentences in email, damn it. Anyway, time to judge his paper with emotes. Exactly. But you can only break the rules when you already know what the fuck you're doing. Like, exactly, Vipers. Well, this is the conceit of what I'm doing now. The idea that I'm going to make sense of academic philosophy over the course of a fucking Twitch stream while cursing and dealing with chat this is the conceit of the whole thing. And then we're going to judge it with emotes. Well, that fits because we're on Twitch and we're just, it doesn't matter. Thank you, Rethius. I'm definitely not the best, but I appreciate the sentiment. So, concluding remarks. I have argued that there is a form of minimal cooperation among individuals who are members of organized social groups that does not depend on shared mental states, special we mode intentions, or joint commitments. Roles in group organizations can be defined so that playing a role and having a common goal involves cooperating with others. The account I have given is not a general account of cooperation. In its present form, it applies only to cases in which individuals play roles in an organized group structure, that is, to members of organized groups. Yet, at least in these cases, externalism about the social holds for phenomena like minimal cooperation. Social phenomena and social ontology have largely been understood in internalist terms. The roles that representations and mental states play in the creation of the social world are interesting and need to be better understood. Yeah, so this is the hand wave at Kate knows she didn't do this stuff and that this is going to come up, but gotta sort of just be like, yes, I didn't do that. This is a project for another day. I was doing this other thing. Yet they should not be overemphasized. As organizations become complex and institutions are reified, representations and mental states matter less. Even if internalist mechanisms are needed to build some foundational aspects of the social world, the internalist ladder can be knocked away once complex roles and institutions have been created. As we extend our focus beyond pairs of individuals or small groups to complex institutionalized groups and context, the social phenomena like cooperation can and should be theorized in ways that are more external. Frank says she had to cut it short to fit the paper within Philosophy Roulette's strict limitations. I can guarantee you that was not the case. So, I got 2 drinks. But yeah, that's it. So, awesome. So, yeah, is there anything we gotta say? No, we're gonna do the drown the streamer thing? Yeah. But yeah, so, what do we say about this paper? I didn't get really angry with, granted, I know this person, I probably would not feel stretch. All right. One up, one down. Then you switch. So what you're trying to do is you try to get one going one way, one going the other. Then you push your shoulders up and then you push your body down. So you're actually compressing and doing that to your, the inside. Do some Tai Chi stretches, okay? So then you can, you're compressing your inside and you're stretching it, and then you compress down. Oh, there we go. Oh, what are we arguing for, Arethius? Stretches and drinks? There's no argument. You should just stretch and drink. Just do it. It's very bad for you for not getting hydrated enough and not treating your physical body well. Do you need, a proper argument for this? Let's see. How would I argue for that, actually? It's a good question. I probably will email Kate because I think I emailed her when I saw she got tenure and I like sent a congratulatory note. So I might send this to her. Yeah, so again, well explained. It didn't get too far into the weeds. Like there were some things I went over very fast, and there's some things I was just like, she's just hand waving through this, but this is not the point of her paper. Like that was fine. So this is the thing. You are all now welcome to. I don't know if I have anything else to say, but like we have a whole bunch of stuff that like yeah, blah blah blah. Time to review the paper with emotes, as we said. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't have anything a whole lot more to say, but here we go. Here's the emote review. Please, you like copy the emotes, or you can write them out. The write out that's all the way on the right side, not the title. The one on the all the way on the far side of the screen, on the opposite side. So the question is this brain dance? Did this have a lot of fun ideas that made brain dance? Like to be like, ooh, fun ideas, clever. I don't really know that this had like a lot of fun ideas in it. It had some interesting ideas? Maybe. So yeah, if you like it there. Then of course, grapes is for like some people make very big claims and then they shrivel up because they just are terrible at arguing. This one didn't make those claims. This one I think stated its point and it basically came through. So I wouldn't do that. Navel gazing, is this only for academics? This is a little bit. It's academic, but like it's not really that navel gazing because it actually had a lot of group cooperation stuff. So this is talking about how business structure. So this really isn't just only them. Ouroboros. So this talk about deep ancient mysteries. Now, do you think cooperation is a deep ancient mystery? Is this like some big old topic? Yeah, not really. The Scream. Again, not really existential, but you might think so. Ivan thought it was a little navel gazing. All right. Like this was an artistic drama. Golden Turd, all style, no substance. It's still poop underneath. Yeah, this is for bad analytic like the poop is for bad analytic philosophy. This is not bad analytic philosophy. This is like good analytic philosophy. And the knife is for good analytic philosophy. So this is gonna get a knife. It sliced and diced up the arguments. So what I think I'm gonna do is gonna give it a knife. I'm gonna give it 2 knives. And we'll give it a vote yay. Because it was a good paper, if you're interested in this stuff. Is there anything else to say? Yeah, maybe we'll give it, like, I'll give it 2 vote yays. So, because I'm doing a little thing like vote out of 5, maybe. At least I'm thinking about that. And do I want to give it a brain dance? Yeah, we'll give it a brain dance. Yep. So there we go. Okay, and everyone in chat, you are welcome to put your review up. This will get saved and it'll go up on a website, and then I'll have a little website with a YouTube link to the this video because I put these up on YouTube afterwards, and you'll have your name and your little review next to it, like your emote review, and then eventually, hopefully, it'll be searchable. One of these days when I get around to making a website. So feel free to do it. I'll leave it up. The screen up because it only records what emotes you're using when the screen is up. Okay, so like what else was good about this? It's like, this went over the other theories. It did a few things. It did a little bit of metaphysics. It did a little bit of argumentation on like what the game theory was, on the internal externalism debate sort of thing. Viper says, isn't social organization one of the deepest ancient mysteries predating our species? Sure. So you could say, if you think so, like, and you want to talk about this, then yes. Like usually if you want, I saw you threw the Ouroboros on it. Sure. But it's like, what a lot of times we say, like, if you're talking about like truth or something, if you want to talk about cooperation, I don't think cooperation is taken as like a big, like, giant thing, but like, it's fair enough. It is a very hard question. And so like, what is cooperation and how do we do it? That's fair. Like, and you think it is like a very, very like, ooh, like, okay. It's like your opinion on this. So like, does Kate deserve a, Ouroboros on this? Maybe. I could still throw one on there. Yeah, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a... Give an Ouroboros. So like if you add your emote afterwards, it'll just get added onto the list. So you can just add more if you decide whatever. So yeah. So let's see. Anything else to say? Yeah, see, it's like cooperation in social groups. I guess this like social ontology deserves a bit more credit. Maybe I'm not giving social ontology enough credit, and Vipers called me out. So let's see. Anything else that was like super like interesting? Again, this was like well argued. Like there was no question about what was happening. There was standard structure. Talk about the other people. Present your show some problems. Present your stuff. Talk about some interesting things afterwards, which was the externalism debate, and then like another sort of related theory, this continuity thesis thing, and how that might be a play out. So again, this structure is just sort of cool. Nothing crazy in terms of argumentation. Just generally well rounded. I think it would have needed to explain what a role is to get Ouroboros. Yeah, this is maybe some of my complaint about how she dodged talking about metaphysics, because like it was talking about sort of how the cooperation works once you have a structure, not how you get granted powers. That is fair. Like if she said a role is a person just simpler than most, I'd be on board. So yeah, that's fair, Frank. Now the fact that she even made any appeal to a sort of metaphysical structure that's grander than what was on the table, that's why she can get one Ouroboros. Maybe she'd get multiple Ouroboros if she had, made some grander metaphysical claims about what it is to have what powers organizations can grant you. Like all of a sudden, like I was saying, like I knight Viper's gratitude, Sir Viper's gratitude, or whatever. Now, if you're going to talk about how that is now essentially changing Viper's from whatever he was to whatever he now is, that's like some ontological shift. And then you could be like, well, now we're doing an ontological shift. That was not what happened here, though. We just started off with the ability to play a role. And you can do that. It doesn't say how it happens. It just says what is happening with it, which is fair. There's a fine enough paper. You don't have to do all the things all at once. And, but like, yeah, like, again, that might be that's a bigger claim about like the powers and metaphysics of like gaining abilities, losing abilities, joining or creating organizations that have powers to grant like roles, or roles that grant powers. Ugh. But okay. Anywho, we're getting on the 3-hour mark, and thank you all